Okay, so today we're going to dive into something pretty interesting. You know, we've got this audio recording that a listener sent in, and it's an excerpt from a .mp3 file that's just labeled disabled. It's fascinating to me, right, because of how the speaker reframes what we might typically think of as limitations, right? And kind of flips it on its head to find this, positive way of looking at things, and even a way to sort of share.
No. That's a huge topic, and I think something a lot of people can relate to. How do you take something that might feel like a limitation? It takes...
Right. And turn it into something that can actually be empowering for yourself and for others.
For yourself?
Absolutely. And, right from the start of this recording, you get this really telling moment where the speaker is responding to someone who's appreciating their work, and the person says something like, I really appreciate your work being disabled. And the speaker kind of pauses and goes,
I appreciate you saying that, but I don't really think of it as a disability. I think of it as an inability.
I think of it, and they go on to say,
Just because I'm unable to do something doesn't diminish what I do for everyone.
That's interesting right off the bat, because they're making this distinction that's really important, I think, between disability, which can feel very broad and, kind of like this overarching label, versus inability, which is
right, yeah.
much more specific. It's about a particular action or a thing you might not be able to do. Exactly. And I think that's key to this whole depth dive, really, is that idea of instead of letting a bright label define you, you focus on the specific things.
And it seems like that gives the speaker a greater sense of control.
It does make you wonder, by focusing on these specific inabilities, it almost allows you to manage them better, rather than feeling overwhelmed by this huge concept of disability.
Yeah, and they even give us some concrete examples of what they mean by inabilities.
The speaker mentions, the inability to walk, which we can assume is related to their physical situation. But then they also mention the inability to play trumpet and the inability to walk a tightrope.
So it's like this really interesting mix of, something that's clearly tied to their physical condition, but then also
things that are, skills or talents that many people might not have.
Regardless of whether they have a disability or not.
It almost normalizes it, by putting the inability to walk next to the inability to play a trumpet. It's like, well, we all have inabilities. Some are just more visible than others.
Totally. And I think by sort of acknowledging those specific inabilities,
it kind of frees up the mental space to then focus on what they can do, which leads us to, one of the most powerful statements in this recording.
Where the speaker says, but what I can do is make every day I'm alive the most bestest I can.
And there's just this incredible positivity.
It's so proactive.
Yeah, it's not. It's not dwelling on limitations. It's like, okay, what can I do right now to make the most of this moment?
Exactly. And I think that's such a valuable takeaway.
For anyone it makes you think about how much energy we sometimes waste on things we can't do rather than focusing on what's actually possible, right? And this isn't just about the speaker's own personal experience.
They explicitly say, yeah.
And I can share the tips that I use.
To make my day the bestest with everyone else, so that you can have the same exact experience every single day.
I want to share happiness with people.
There's a real sense of wanting to connect and,
spread this positivity. Absolutely. And they even directly address their audience. They talk about the Grateful Quad Squad, which I'm assuming is like a specific... Yeah. And then they say, and everyone. Right. Like it's not just about this one group. It's about spreading this feeling of positivity.
Yeah, it's like they've taken this experience and found a way to make it not only empowering for themselves, but something they can genuinely share with others.
And you can just hear that in their voice too. Throughout the whole recording, the tone is so upbeat.
And enthusiastic, it's really infectious.
I think that's part of what makes it so effective.
It's not just the words they're saying.
It's the energy behind them. You can tell they're living this.
This isn't just a theory.
It's not just talk.
It's something they embody.
So, to kind of bring it all together, this idea of shifting our perspective from this broad label of disability to the more specific idea of inabilities.
Yeah, I think that's really at the heart of what the speaker's trying to convey, right? And it's about,
finding that sense of control and focusing on what you can do, and spreading that positivity.
Not letting the limitations define you.
Not
but using them as a springboard to something even greater.
And I think that leaves us with a final thought for you, the listener.
Yeah. What are some inabilities that you might be holding on to, like these huge limitations in your own life?
And what would happen if you reframed them as simply,
Areas where, your focus or your talents lie elsewhere.
That's interesting.
it's a subtle shift, but as we've heard today,
It can have a pretty powerful impact on your well-being and how you connect with the world around you.
Yeah, it really does.
thanks for joining us for this deep dive.